What's up, people? Welcome back. How are you? I'm doing pretty decent. Thank you for asking. So I want to talk about why I invested in my Sony Venice. So I guess to start, why did I choose the Venice over, say, an Alexa Mini? I've had experience shooting with both camera systems, and I truly love both of them. And I love the Mini for certain reasons. I love the Venice for certain reasons as well. And to be honest, if you are shooting on either one of those cameras, can you really go wrong? No, you really can't. So it's like, is that the saying, apples and oranges? I don't know, maybe that's the saying. Yeah, if you're shooting with either the Mini or the Venice, you're in good hands. Both of those cameras are just top tier and truly can make some of the best images. And even to this day, the Alexa Mini is the top camera being used in the industry, and you know, the Venice is right behind that. So both of those cameras equally are just really phenomenal options. And I was really torn between the Mini and the Venice, and there were certain aspects of the Venice that kind of drew me towards that a little bit more. I really wanted to think about what would benefit me right now and what would benefit me in 2, 3, 4 years from now. Like, when I'm investing in something, I want to know the long-term benefits of it. I don't want to have something benefit me right now, but then just be completely dead in a year from now, because that just, for me, doesn't seem too beneficial. So the longevity of my purchase was really important to me. When looking at the different options, I kind of leaned more towards the Venice for a bunch of reasons. And one of the biggest reasons was the fact that it was full frame and it was also 6K. And the fact that it also had dual ISO of 2500 and 500 was a major benefit. But I'm going to dive into each of those a little bit later and into more detail. But the first thing I really want to talk about is the fact that this camera is full frame. For so long, I've been accustomed to shooting on the Ursa and with the Super 35 look. I just kind of became really accustomed to that field of view and the view of the world essentially through that camera. And after getting some opportunities to shoot on the Mini LF and the Venice and being able to shoot open gate at full frame, I was honestly just blown away, and I felt like my world changed, my perspective changed as a DP, and I felt like I was missing something that I was shooting on Super 35. And one of the biggest benefits for me shooting full frame is the fact that you get to just see the world more. There's a feeling of like it's larger than life, and I don't really mean like shooting a big action sequence and a IMAX, that type of thing. I'm referring to even the simplest of projects, like a corporate interview, for example. Like if you're shooting in a really tight office space, having the full frame capabilities could really elevate the look and make the room feel a lot bigger and more grand. Along with shooting full frame open gate on the Venice, you also have so many different recording options and different cropping ratios within the camera. And by cropping your sensor, you're able to really create a look specific to what you want, and you're not just bound to full frame. And that was a big benefit to me in terms of the longevity. It's like, I have the full frame capabilities, but I also have the capabilities of shooting Super 35 or another type of cropped sensor, because a lot of the times there's not a lot of full frame lenses out there that are, you know, easily acceptable or budget friendly. So if you need to shoot something that's on Super 35, you could just change the project settings within the Venice and change your cropped sensor size, and you're able to accommodate with a Super 35 lens. So to coincide with the variable aspect ratios and cropped sensor sizes comes the resolution. The Venice living at full frame 6K, and for example the Mini lives at 4K UHD, I figured that the Venice at 6K really increase the longevity of the camera. It also helps with VFX work. And another thing to note is if you're doing a lot of commercial work where there is a vertical intention, by shooting wider in full frame 6K, you have the option of cropping in vertically if your export's at 1080. And at 6K, you have so much room to crop in, you really won't lose any detail or resolution. So moving on, I really want to talk about the form factor of this camera. It's big, it's hefty, it's just a big camera, and personally for my style, I love that. I love the heavy cameras, I love the big bulky cameras. You know, there are some times where that's not really the case, it's not the biggest benefit, and the smaller cameras do have the benefit. But for a lot of the stuff, I really do like the bigger, heavier cameras. And especially if I'm doing handheld work, say with an easy rig, having the big heavy camera can get rid of a lot of those micro jitters and create a more smoother handheld shot. And speaking to the build, the actual quality of the camera is like solid. It's built like a rock. Like the top handle is really solid in that little slot up top. the buttons, the dials, everything is just built with a pristine quality and precision, and every detail was really considered, and nothing falls short to excellence within this camera. Now, if you look at the back of the camera, I added the AX7 RAW recorder, and this adds obviously some length to the camera, some weight to the camera, but this is a huge plus to the Venice by shooting RAW. When shooting RAW, you have 3 different compression ratios: XT, ST, and LT. XT being the highest quality and least compression, LT being the most compressed. But either way, all of it is still 16-bit. Regardless, you still have an insane amount of recording data and latitude within your RAW recording settings. The only negative that I really have here is, honestly, I really can't complain about it, because if you're gonna buy a Venice, you have to understand what comes with buying a Venice. It's very expensive. The cards are very expensive. They're like $2,500 each. And if you get a 516 gigabyte card and you're shooting at the highest compression ratio XT, you only get 23 minutes of recording time at 6K open gate. So that's also something to consider as well. And that's something that I also took note of when looking to invest in this camera, was all the different other expenses that go along with it. You can simultaneously record internally ProRes, proxies, but it's really amazing being able to record both RAW and ProRes or proxies simultaneously, especially for your editor, not having to edit those RAW files and those huge sizes. You can definitely degrade the quality in the internal setting to give your editor a better file to work with in editing, and then be able to export the fully RAW file. Another benefit I love about this camera is the 2 different sides of the camera. The left side, which I call the operator side, is meant for the obvious operator, because most of the time when you're operating the camera, you're on the left side of the body. So having this menu section specifically for the operator is a lot more sleek, it's a lot smaller, it's a lot more concise, and it's a lot quicker. So you have these quick buttons to be able to adjust things very quickly and on the fly. Now when you flip the camera around, that is more for the AC side. That is where you can get a better in-depth menu section. You could change a lot of the project settings, you could change your aspect ratio. That's where pretty much all of the things happen, is on the right side of the camera. There's a basic menu section, and then there is the deeper menu section when you press and hold menu. And one of the major factors for me in investing in this camera was the fact that it had dual base ISO at 500 and 2500. Having a clean base of 2500 ISO has so many benefits in and of itself. And for me personally, I have a lot of experience shooting the feature and shooting some commercials on this camera at shooting 2500 ISO in a brighter set in daylight and NDing it down to get the proper exposure. And the reason for this is to be able to essentially fake exposure within the camera and be able to retain highlights a lot better. And when you're in post, you can get a really well-balanced image by kind of faking exposure and bringing the highlights down. And to be honest, at 2500, you really don't get any noise or artifacts that are unpleasant. Like, it is a beautiful, clean image. Even at 3200 ISO, it's still very clean. So the fact that you're able to shoot at that high of an ISO when you're in low light, or if you're just even in daylight, the fact that you can do that, and with the internal NDs, you have 8 different ND settings that you could select. It is truly amazing because you don't have to adjust or compromise your T-stops. And in terms of having a production ready camera, you'll notice that this camera has every single port you could dream of. It has audio capabilities, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, it has so many SDI out ports, one that could be specific for the DIT, one that could be specific for a client monitor, one specific for your onboard monitor. And the reason why that's a really big benefit is because if you connect your onboard monitor to that monitor out SDI, you can check your false color, and it doesn't show up on the client feed, and it doesn't show up on your DIT feed either. So if you're utilizing SDI 1 and 2 out, that could be sent to your DIT because it is a log file. You can't input a LUT in SDI 1 and 2, and having your DIT look at a log file, they can start working on coloring and color timing. And then SDI 3 and 4 out could be for your client monitor, director monitor, and they won't see any of the false color things that you're looking at. They won't check anything. It's just a very clean feed for them that you could input a LUT for them to look at, and it is perfect that you have 3 different options for SDI outs for your onboard, DIT, and client or director's monitor. So speaking of false color, another really big benefit that I found within this camera is I selected a quick button number 4 for my false color, and whenever I click that to check my false color, it switches from the LUT to log so I can get a more accurate reading on my false color. Prior to that, I would have to turn off my LUT, then check false color, then turn my LUT back on. but having it internally do that is a huge game changer and time saver. So these are the reasons why I invested in the Sony Venice. And of course, there are other things that I have not yet touched upon, and I definitely plan on doing a bunch of videos in the coming months and this year about the Sony Venice. As I get more familiar with the camera and as I start using it more, I definitely will be talking about a lot more in detail stuff. But for now, this was a great base coverage of why I wanted to invest in the camera and some of the benefits that it does offer. I don't know about you guys, but I am like beyond excited to start shooting with this camera. I got my first project on Saturday, which is 2 days from now. I'm shooting a short film and we are shooting dark. So I'm really excited for that. We have behind the scenes on that project as well. So definitely be on the lookout for some behind the scenes on that project. And I think that's it. Hopefully you guys have a great day. Hopefully you guys have a great day. Have a great week. If you found this video to be beneficial, hit the like button, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you next time. Peace out.